It's a Mailbag Friday on the podcast. Going to be answering your Twitter questions, including some about when could we see Michael Harris. Also, do the Braves need to go out and find another bat? We'll be covering that and a lot more on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we talk about your favorite teams every single day. I am your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on Twitter at shortstopball and check out my bio there to see everywhere I am covering the game of baseball, including the Atlanta Braves in written form over at tomahawktake.com. You can also follow the podcast on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to us on YouTube as well. And thanks for making Locked On Braves your first listen each and every day. We post episodes daily, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and are free and available on all podcasts. Also, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta, where you can get me and Grant McCauley doing the postcast after just about every Atlanta Braves game. This is a mailbag edition of the podcast with another off day on Thursday. Seems like the Braves are having a lot of off days here lately, which I'm sure they'll take after that long stretch of games to begin the season. But we are now into the swing of things with this season going, and it's time for the Atlanta Braves to start picking things up. And I talked about it at the end of the last podcast. They have a stretch of games coming up here that should be favorable for the Atlanta Braves. They're series that they should be able to handle and should be able to win. So this is the time for the Atlanta Braves. They're going to start making some noise, crawling back into that NL East race. Now is the time to do that. But on today's podcast, we're going to be taking your questions, talking about a number of things, including Michael Harris, the approach for the Atlanta Braves hitters. Do they need to go out and find another bat? And what is the Braves' way? We're covered all that on today's podcast. So I appreciate you as always for sending in your questions. Please continue to do that. Anytime you have a question or anything that you want to know, just go ahead and tweet that out to me or the podcast, and I'll make sure to get that answered for you. But let's start out with our first question today. And this one comes from Steve Lamb. And this is probably what a lot of Atlanta Braves fans are thinking and want to know right now, especially with the way things have gone for the Braves outfield, is how long do you think it will be until Money Michael Harris, is promoted? Look, I came into the season saying I think he needs to stay all year at Double-A. Double-A is a big deal. It's a big promotion for players. It's usually the league where you'll see it make or break a player. And so I, coming into the year, said I think he needs to stay there all year, continue to develop, work on that power. But I'm not going to lie, with the way that he is going and with the way the Braves outfield is right now, I'm starting to turn that corner a little bit. I still don't see it happening. I don't think it happens. But let's just run through real quick Michael Harris numbers, then I'll give you a comparison to Ronald Acuna Jr. when he got called up. So right now at Double-A, Michael Harris is slashing 297, 354, 493 with 4 home runs and 13 doubles in 36 games at Double-A Mississippi. So doing very well. Again, the last thing for him was that power. We're starting to see a little bit more of that, which is great. That seems to be coming along. So he's doing everything that he needs to do at Double-A right now. He's 21 years old. He has 713 minor league at-bats. And again, the 2020 season hurt every minor league player, but he plays that season. He's probably at around 1,000 minor league at-bats right now, which is really what you want. And again, that's where you make the comparison to Ronald Acuna Jr. And I'm not saying Michael Harris is going to be Ronald Acuna Jr. I'm just saying they're two of the higher profile prospects, outfield position prospects the Braves have had recently. Ronald was promoted at 20 years old. He had around 1,000 minor league at-bats when he was called up, but he had 221 at-bats at Double-A and a little over 300 at-bats at Triple-A. And Michael Harris has yet to even touch Triple-A. So again, that's why I hesitate to say that the Braves would call him up anytime this year. I think at most, I think maybe we see him get a mid-season promotion to AAA and finish out the season there. I just don't see them rushing him right now. Again, he's performing well. He looks great. But you got to go back to the outfield position and prospects for the Braves they had right before Michael Harris and Christian Pache and Drew Waters, and how long it's taking them to develop for the major league level. So I just don't see the real reason to rush Michael Harris. I think it would be rushed if you did it at this point. Continue to let him develop his game, work on his game, and when he comes up, make sure that he's ready. You go out to LA and look at what's happening with Joe Adele, who was one of the top prospects in all of baseball, and now he's struggling to make that adjustment, and he keeps having to go back and forth, and he's still young. He still could figure it out. But you want to try to make sure when you call that player up that they are ready to go from day one. And maybe the Braves might feel Michael Harris is. I don't know. Again, I haven't been able to watch him enough, don't have my eyes on him enough to know that. But when you call him up, you want to make sure he's ready, make sure he doesn't come up and, any kind of confidence is hurt because he comes up and just can't handle it. So I would still, as much as I want to see him, trust me, and I want to see him, that catch he made the other day, which I tweeted out, unbelievable. I mean, he can play Gold Glove defense, and, the way the bat looks, it feels like he's going to be a good hitter, an all-star type hitter and player for the Braves. So look, I want to see him. Don't get me wrong, but I think the best thing for his development is to probably just to continue to finish out this year in the minors. Like I said, perhaps get a midseason call up after you get about 200 at bats at Double-A. If he gets 200 bats at Double-A and he's still, slashing the way that he is right now, then I think maybe you get a call up to Triple-A to end the season. And then we're talking going in next year, him perhaps getting that call up. It could be, again, a similar situation to Ronald where, he got called up in the middle of 2017 to Triple-A. He started out 2018 at Triple-A, and then they called him up, within a month or two of the regular season. So I think we could see a similar situation play out with Michael Harris. So I don't see that happening this year. If anything, I think Drew Waters gets called up this year and gets an opportunity. If Duvall continues to struggle with the bat, then perhaps we see Drew Waters come up. He's played well when healthy, but he's battling a hamstring injury right now. So that may be what you see this year. If anything, I don't think we see Michael Harris, but I think there's an opportunity to see Drew Waters. But, I go back to Michael Harris. Had he had the 2020 season, again, that's at least 350 at bats lost if he's healthy all year. That would go a big way. I think we could be talking about him having an opportunity to play this year, but without those at bats in the minor league level to have that development, I mean, it'd be tough to really call him up right now and risk hurting that development process. So I don't think he comes up this year, but I'm starting to waver on that a little bit. But I still think probably the best thing for his development is to keep him in the minors all season long. Next question comes from Ship of Cephas. He says, practically speaking, what does accountability look like for the Braves' performance this far? Snit's bullpen mismanagement, players underperforming, what else? Look, for me, it's players underperforming. Managers, coaches can only do so much at the major league level, especially with the DH now. I mean, you're basically just running your lineup out there. Bullpen in pitching is really the only thing. I'm not going to say the only thing. Lineup construction goes a long way as well. But for in-game practices, bullpen management is the biggest thing. I do think Snit struggles with that at times. It was much better in the postseason when you knew every day you were just going to use your best arms out of there. And that's probably why I thought he did such a great job managing, but also thought he did a great job with the starting rotation. I thought he outcoached Dave Roberts by miles in that NLCS, but I do question some of his bullpen changes and usage at times, but that's with every manager out there right now, and we have the ability of hindsight with some of these as well. So there may be a couple of games here or there where I thought the bullpen could have been managed better, But at the end of the day, it comes down to players performing. And Alex Anthopoulos has put together a roster that has players that should be capable of performing better than they are. And they're just underperforming. And I've talked about it a lot. They're all slumping at the same time, which you don't really, you rarely ever see. And that's been a real struggle for this team, is when everybody in the middle of your order goes cold at the same time. I get it. The Braves have some streaky hitters, but you're hoping that one of them is streaking at the time and the other one's not. And right now they're all just slumping at the same time. And you look at the numbers for this team. Acuna and Olsen are the only hitters with an OPS over 800. And Acuna, as you know, has not been regularly in the lineup yet this season. And Riley's right there at 799 as well. So, I mean, you could say, Olsen and Riley have been there pretty much all season long with an OPS over 800. But every other regular in that lineup has an OPS under 700. So there's just not that consistency throughout the order. Typically with this lineup, you're going to have, 3 or 4 guys at a time with an OPS over 800 and the rest between 700 and 800. And you're just not having that right now. You got 2 guys with high OPS and everybody else under 700. The one exception is Travis Demerit, who has a 707 OPS, who's cooled off a lot lately. But, he hasn't been in there all season either. So, it's the Swansons, the Albies, the Ozunas, the Duvals, just not picking it up in the middle of the order right now. And that's really, bringing down this lineup. So for me, I put most of the blame on players just underperforming for the Atlanta Braves right now. All right, take a quick break and come back and answer some more of your questions. Before we do that, I want to tell you about Built Bar. I love brownies. I'm sure you do too. Brownie batter. Sometimes I eat half the batter just while I'm making the brownies. Imagine if you could lick that brownie spatula clean and get some protein in there as well. You're in luck, because Built has a new creation, and this one is better than ever. The Brownie Batter Puff. You heard me right. This puff takes protein bars to a whole new level, and they're available right now at built.com. And have you tried the Built Puffs yet? I'm not sure what you're waiting for. Puffs are covered in 100% marshmallow protein. That's right. Delicious flavored marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate with 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 7 grams of sugar. Brownie Batter Puffs are the perfect pick me up for any day. All Built Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means with Built, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. And they are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. The Brownie Batter Puffs will have you completely forgetting that you are eating a protein bar. No need to pinch yourself. This is real life. Go to built.com to get the Brownie Batter Puffs now. Go to built.com, and when you're there, use our promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Again, that's LOCKED15 to get 15% off at built.com. So a couple more questions here. This one from Chris Shaffy says, can you describe the Braves way philosophy and how it has stayed or changed over the years? So I had to look this up myself, but I found this quote from John Sherholtz talking about the Braves way and what it means. So I'm just going to read this quote to you. It's a special way of identifying young players who you want to become part of your organization with great comfort and expectation that when they put on a Braves uniform, they'll be taught well, instructed well. Their makeup and their character will allow them to turn into winning championship caliber players. They'll fit the pipeline of this organization with highly capable, high character, young winning men who help you win many, many championships on a major league level year after year. So I think that's a pretty good summation of what the Braves way is. And to be honest, that's every team's way. And that's what every team is trying to do. I just think the Braves were so successful with it, through the 90s and early 2000s, that it just kind of got labeled as the Braves way. But that's what every team's trying to do. Every team's goal is to acquire and develop young talent and turn them into championship caliber players. So, I mean, the Braves way is nothing special than what every other team out there is trying to do. I think the Braves have just been more successful at it over the years. And nothing's changed in that. That's still the goal for the Braves and for every team, is to scout, acquire, develop young talent, and turn them into great players. I'd say the only thing that's changed right now, at least for this season, is that the team is willing to spend a little more and buy a little bit more talent to where they haven't, in the last 10 years or so. So that may be the only change there. But the Braves way, it's the same way as every other team. I just think the Braves have done it better to the point where they got labeled as the Braves way. Chris had also asked, and BT Murdoch had asked this as well, do you feel the Braves need to make a trade to get another bat? And BT Murdoch had asked the Braves, or he just simply said the Braves need another bat. Look, I don't see any significant type of trade or anything happening right now. I don't think we see anything really happen until June or July. I think the Braves are stuck, and I hate to say stuck because I think these players are good players, but I think we're stuck with what you have right now, and you just have to hope that Duvall, Ozuna, Albies, start to turn it on and play like they're capable and play like we've seen in the past. I'm as frustrated as Ozzie Albies makes me with his approach at the plate. That's his game. It's proved to be successful, over a long period of time now. So I feel pretty confident that he'll get going. I'm a little bit more concerned about Duvall and Ozuna, and whether or not they'll turn things around. But I mean, you're at the point right now, those are established players. You just have to hope they turn it on at some point. And who are you really replacing in this lineup on this team? Travis d'Arnaud's not going anywhere. Matt Olson's not going anywhere. Ozzie, Dansby, Riley, Acuna, they're not going anywhere. And Ozuna, for better or worse, is not going anywhere because money talks. The Braves are paying him a lot of money. As bad as he may be going at times, he's not coming out of that lineup. So those guys are in there. The only possible upgrades are Duvall and Travis Demeritte. And I could see the Braves perhaps making an upgrade for Travis at some point. He started to cool off a little bit, did great things for the Braves when he came up when they really needed him. But I could see them maybe upgrading for him at some point. If Duvall continues to struggle, like I said, then perhaps Drew Waters gets a chance, but I think that's not until like the second half of the season because Waters has to prove that he's healthy and he has to prove, that he can be successful. And he has been so far when healthy this year, but he really struggled last year. So he's going to have to really prove himself this season at AAA before he can get that call up. So again, who are you replacing? Who are you taking out? There's maybe one or two spots here where you can make a change, and I just don't see anything significant getting done. Look, I talked about in the offseason, I wanted the Braves to go out and get an outfielder, or a center fielder in particular, and there just wasn't anybody out there. Maybe they go back out to Oakland and look at a Ramon Laureano. I know he's off his suspension now and making his way back, but I mean, what are you really going to do right now to make a significant upgrade? I mean, this is the team that Alex built. I still believe it's a team that can win a championship, but you're just going to have to wait for things to turn around. I think they're just going to have to ride it out with what they have at the moment. There's nobody internally that they're really going to replace, or they would have done that already. So this is the team that you have, for better or worse. And again, I think there are better days ahead. Final question comes from E. Goldie. Says, how much impact does a hitting coach actually have on MLB hitters 6 weeks into the season? And it doesn't seem like our hitters are willing to consistently make adjustments, especially in two-strike counts. The Braves' two-strike approach is not good. I feel like they are guessing and not geared up for the fastball. I don't see our hitters trying to foul close pitches off in those situations. What are you seeing in these situations? Do hitters actually practice fouling off pitches? So, look, this has been my complaint for years with this Braves team, is that their approach just does not change. They do not change in two strikes at all. And in the past, it's worked out for them. Look, the results speak for themselves. They've been a great offense for a couple of years now using this approach where, it's home run or bust. And look, I don't love that style of offense. I know it's fun for most fans out there to just see a bunch of home run balls, and when they're coming, it's great, but when they're not, it's the most frustrating thing in the world to watch. And look, the Braves just won a World Series because they had a lineup full of guys who could hit home runs, and they all were hitting at the same time. But when you're not doing that, how do you manufacture runs to win games? And that's my whole frustration with this offense, is when they're not getting the home runs, how are you winning ball games? And they just don't have an answer for that. They're not they're not usually capable of stringing hits together, a single and a double, a walk and a stolen base. That's just not how this offense, usually works. And I think that's where a change in approach needs to come. And that's, I don't think the hitting coach has a ton to do with that. Look, Seitzer is viewed as one of the best hitting coaches in all of baseball. I've always been of the opinion, and look, I've never been in a major league locker room. I've talked with several former players, coaches who have been, but my view has always been the hitting coach has very little impact on the approach and what goes on with, each player. They're always the ones that take the fall when offense isn't good. We've already seen one hitting coach fired this year from the Royals, but I feel like they have very minimal to do with what goes on with the hitters. The hitters know their swings, especially these Braves players who are established players. They know their swings better than anyone. And, I'm sure the hitting coaches, if he sees something mechanical, going to point it out and make adjustments here or there. I think the overall approach is just a team thing, an organizational thing, and that needs to change. And especially if these baseballs are not traveling as far, and they don't seem to be, I'm becoming convinced as that as well. It's taking me a little longer than others to be convinced. Then their approach has to change, and they need to change the way that they score runs, and they need to be able to score runs in multiple ways. And that's just not what they've been capable of doing over the past several years. It's been home run or bust. You look at the game on Wednesday, all 4 runs scored in the same inning, all coming on home runs. If you just found a way to manufacture another run or two when you had runners on base in all of the innings after that, then you win that game. But they're incapable of doing that at times. They can't hit with runners in scoring position. It's a problem. When you're not getting the home runs, it's a problem for this offense to score. So it's past time, in my opinion, for the hitters to change their approach, but also for the manager to change his approach, calling more hit and run, allowing the players to be more free to steal, which I think they are. And I think they've done a good job of that at times, but putting the ball in play, put in emphasis on putting the ball in play. The difference in that Brewers series was the Brewers hitters changed their approach with 2 strikes. They were willing to cut down on their swing to put the ball in play. And that's why they won that series, because the Braves hitters weren't able to do that or weren't willing to do that. I'm not saying they're not able. They weren't willing to do that. And Brewers hitters were. And that's why they won that series over the Braves. The Brewers offense is not great in any means. We saw that in the first 2 games. We've seen that over the last several games with them. But one thing they will do, they will cut down on their swings in order to put the ball in play. So, yes, there needs to be a huge change in approach for these Braves hitters. I started to see it a little bit with Adam Duvall the last couple of games. Hopefully some other hitters get on board with that as well. So, you don't want to take away what makes these players great, and that is the home run ball. The Braves had just about everybody on the infield last year hit 30 home runs. That's what this team is built around. But you would like to see more well-rounded hitters up and down the lineup that are capable of changing their approach and being able to put the ball in play in order to score more runs and to manufacture runs. And that just hasn't happened to this point. Great questions there. We're going to take another break and then come back and preview Friday's game. Before we do that, let me tell you about BetOnline. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, sports developments, including this year's NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Starting on Friday night is Charlie Morton going up against Trevor Rogers. Rogers has been good in his last 2 outings, allowing just 1 earned run over 10 1/3 innings. He gave up just 1 unearned run to the Braves over 5 innings in a start back in April. Albies is 4 for 12 against Rogers. Swanson is 4 for 7. So hopefully those 2 are going on Friday. Charlie Morton is starting to get on a roll. Like Rogers, he's allowed just 1 earned run over his last 2 starts. He did not face Miami last time the Braves played them. Jazz Chisholm is 6 for 15 off of Charlie Morton, so watch out for him making some noise. And you would think that Acuna plays at least 2 of these games, maybe 1 in right field, maybe 1 at DH, or perhaps he plays every game at DH to avoid putting him out there on that synthetic turf where the injury took place last year. But hopefully we do see more of Ronald Acuna Jr. out there over the weekend. That will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at @LockedOn_Braves. You can follow me at ShortstopBall. Also, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we'll talk to you next time.